Good evening, Power Life. How many of you know that movie, The Incredibles? Okay. Um, it's actually one of my favorites. So raise your hand if maybe you can relate a little bit to that clip. Maybe your family has gotten to some arguments, some things have gone on. Maybe not the superpower part, okay? Yeah, mine too. Maybe not the superpower part. Like, I don't have like Elastigirl arms, or my husband doesn't have like crazy super strength, or the force field like Violet, or super speed like Dash. But we can definitely relate to the kind of the arguments and the fighting and getting upset with each other. Which, speaking of family, this is my family. My name is Nicole Carlisle. I know, everybody's like, I've got one in here right now, so we're gonna see how this goes. But my name's Nicole. I am actually the adult ministry coordinator here at Hope Waukee, so I get to spend time with your parents a lot of the time, which I absolutely love. I'm thinking you guys could like teach them a little bit about energy, though. Like, I loved getting to watch all of you guys worship. Let's bring that into Sundays too. Let's get our parents doing it too. So this is my not so perfect family. I am a mom to my husband, Mike. I'm a wife to my husband, Mike. And I am a mom to 4 teenagers. So Brixton, my oldest up here, is a senior at Northwest. Lachlan in the blue is a junior. Kinsman's in 9th grade. And Miralette is a 7th grader, which some of you may know her. So I have to be honest, I tried to look for a clip like The Incredibles, something from our family, like where we were fighting or crying, a picture or something, and I couldn't find any. And that's not because it doesn't happen. It does a lot. But we don't usually document it. We don't really talk about it or take pictures when those things happen. These are the moments we usually want to hide and kind of pretend that they don't happen. Kind of like the scene in Incredibles when the Parr family was arguing, and then all of a sudden, the doorbell rings, and they immediately stop arguing. They put everything back together and make it look like nothing's wrong. So I don't know about you, maybe you've experienced this in your family too, where like things just aren't always perfect. But don't get me wrong, families can actually be really great. They're important. They're a little wild sometimes, right? They're loving. They provide a place for us to feel loved. They can bring a lot of joy. Our family has a lot of fun together. We do a lot of crazy things. They're a safe place, a place where we feel like we belong. They can be goofy and a little bit crazy, but they're really a great place. They're pretty amazing, but they can be hard too. They can be a little bit frustrating, right? Our siblings can annoy you. I'm guessing none of you have siblings that annoy you. Okay. Or we can feel like our parents don't understand us. I am an adult, and sometimes all right, I got everybody going. All right. Or we can feel like our parents don't understand you. I'm an adult, and sometimes I feel like my parents don't understand me, so it still happens. We can be frustrated with our family rules. There's dysfunction and brokenness. And when things like this happen, it gets pretty frustrating. We can feel pretty hurt and misunderstood. But I want to start off by saying no family is perfect, okay? My family is not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect mom. This is when all my kids are like, oh my word, she finally admitted in public she's not perfect. But it is. I'm not perfect. None of us are. We all make mistakes. As a family, we make mistakes. Say the wrong things, we get angry at each other, we roll our eyes. So our family's not perfect. And tonight we're going to talk about families. We're going to talk about families, and we're going to talk about superheroes. Okay, so I know you're probably like, how does that go together, Nicole? Like, what in the world? Stick with me. I promise it's going to hopefully connect. So the 3 main things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how from the very beginning God created families, and he created them. He said they were good. We're also going to talk about how families are messy, and that's not something new to God. He's not surprised by the hard parts of our stories, and how Jesus came to restore and repair our families to the way he originally intended. So let's start at the beginning. And by the beginning, I mean the beginning of God's word in Genesis. It says in the beginning that he created mankind in his image. In his image, he created them, and he blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." Okay, so God created Adam and Eve, right? He told them to have a family. He told them that this was supposed to be a place where they felt love, they felt joy. They learned about patience and forgiveness, and they grew in their faith. He designed marriage and parenting and the relationships that are all in that to reflect his love. So you're probably like, that's cool, Nicole. Jesus had a family. All right, cool. And he created it. But what does that mean for me? And what that means is there's a problem. Sorry, guys. What that means is that like our family doesn't feel perfect all the time, and I get that. And that's because there's a problem. There's a problem in this world, and that problem is sin. Okay, everybody can go dun dun dun. This is where Thank you. I like it. This is where the evil enters in, right? During the story of Adam and Eve, when they chose to eat from the tree of good and evil, sin entered the world. And from that moment, God's perfect plan went the other way. It broke what he originally designed. And we see this in our own family now. They're not picture perfect. Our families have chaos. They have disagreements. They have moments when everything seems a little out of control. Maybe your family's there right now. Maybe you're fighting a lot with your siblings or arguing with your parents. Or maybe you've been hurt by something someone said or did. Or you just don't feel like you belong. But even the families in the Bible were really messy. So if you think your family is a little crazy or a little messy, check out this family from the book of Genesis. Okay, so there's a lot going on in that family, and that's all in the Bible. I think if there was like a reality TV show on the biblical families, they would definitely be the season finale. We got jealousy, we got drama, we've got deception, betrayal, sibling rivalry, and even murder. I don't know about you, but I don't think this is a family I would choose to save the world. This is the stuff I'd rather hide. It kind of reminds me of that doorbell again, right? Like, let's just package it up and make it look all perfect, like we've got it all together. So why in the world would God use this family? Why would he use Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, right? Well, did you catch what the video said about Abraham's family? Yeah, God gave them a promise. He promised that through Abraham's family, through this really messed up family, he was going to bless all the nations. He promises to restore the world back to the goodness of the garden, right? That time before Adam and Eve took that apple. He said that through this family that was really broken and messed up, he was going to do something really good. He was going to restore not only their family, but the whole world. So right about now, you're probably like, but how, Nicole? Like, this family seems really messed up. This is the part of the story where the superhero shows up. So, let's see if I can get my cue. So if you followed the family tree, right, we had Abraham. Do you guys know what comes next? Isaac. Okay. Then who's next? Jacob. And Joseph. And those are just the stories that take us through Genesis, and there's a whole lot more. But if you keep following that family line, any idea where we end up at? Jesus! Yeah, you're right. We end up at Jesus. We see that Jesus is in this family line. So when God says that he's going to use that family to bless the world, he knew we were humans and we were going to mess it up. And so he knew we were going to need a superhero. And that superhero is Jesus. So at the very end of the Bible, in Revelations, God tells us that Jesus came not to cover up our flaws, but to restore and repair our brokenness. He came to heal, He came to forgive, and he came to bring new life to every part of our lives. So this isn't just for Abraham's family. He's working in my family, and he's working in your family too. He doesn't need us to cover up our flaws. He already sees them. And he promises that someday he's going to restore the broken parts of us and our family. And some of that we'll see now, and some of that we will get to see later. So what does it mean for us right now, though? It means if our families feel broken, we can trust that that Jesus sees us and he cares. And if sometimes we feel misunderstood, we can trust that Jesus understands us. He was human. He had a family. And God's love is always constant. So if your family is struggling right now, Jesus sees it. He does. And he's working even when you can't see it. Okay, so here's where it gets kind of crazy. And the storyline takes kind of an unexpected twist. Just like God invited Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and so on to be a part of his family, he actually invites us to be a part of his family too. So we get to become this one big family. In John 1:12 it says, "But to all who receive him, who believe in his name, he gives the power to become children of God." We get to be his forever family. So you're like, how does that work, Nicole? All right, so scripture tells us that when we choose to believe God is who he says he is, and he did what he said he did, so he died on the cross, right? He's conquered sin and death. We get to be adopted into his family. We become his children. This hits me pretty hard. I don't know if you noticed the picture of my family. Adoption is a part of our family. And I asked my kids if I could talk about this first, so just so you know, they are aware. They didn't come into our family the same way as my older two. It wasn't through birth. It looked a little different. But here's what I can tell you. As an adoptive mom, those kids are mine. You better believe my mama bear is coming out if somebody does anything to them, okay? All right? Thank you. So what does that feel like to know that that's how God feels about you? That's how he feels about you. He's like, those kids are mine, and nobody's coming for them. The enemy, there's no way he's coming for them. I love those kids like crazy. I probably drive them crazy, right? That's just what family does. But from the moment they were placed in my arms, they were mine. They were a part of our family forever. That includes the really good, and that includes the really crazy. And my kids will tell you there's a lot of crazy. So this is what Jesus says about you too. He says, you're his child. You've been adopted into his forever family. So when you become a part of his family, you're also become a part of the mission of that family. Okay, so this is the part where, just like the Incredibles went on a mission of the family together, right? Do you remember the rest of the story? We're going to kind of get there and see that in a minute. Or like Joseph was a part of God's mission to rescue this family. And Jesus is ultimately our superhero, right? On the mission to save us and the world. We're called into the same mission with Jesus, of restoring our families with Jesus. We're called to be the light to our families, called to love them in hard times. So, how do we do this in our families? Because let's be honest, it's hard, right? First, we start with remembering our true identity. We are children of God. We've been adopted, right? We're his children. So, through that, we can love our families. We can love even in the hard moments. We can choose forgiveness, right? We can choose to forgive when it's hard. Forgiveness, did you know forgiveness is kind of a secret ingredient? It's actually the ingredient that helps heal and restore families and our relationships. And we can extend grace because we know probably tomorrow we're going to need some grace too. So, and finally, okay, this is where the superhero powers come in. Go. We can use our superpowers. Y'all are like, Nicole, we don't have superpowers. What are you talking about? Okay, we do. We have been given some pretty impressive powers. One of them is prayer. Prayer is our secret signal to God, okay? So there's our first superpower. We can pray. When things are hectic, we can pray. He can trust that he's working in our family. He gives us his spirit, right? When we ask him to be a Lord of our life, then he gives us his spirit to guide us. And he also gives us his armor, the armor of God. In Ephesians, it talks about that. And these are all that, like, to me, it's like my superhero suit. Like, I can put on to help protect me and to fight the evil in this world. So as we wrap up tonight, we're going to take a look at this last Incredibles clip. Okay, we're almost done. I know, we wanted to finish the movie. That clip looks a little bit different than the first clip we watched. We see the Parr family coming together to fight a common enemy. They stop pretending they're perfect. They kind of embrace the powers that they've been given. So we may not have the same superhero powers that Incredibles have, but we can remember we are children of God, we're a part of his family, and he has given us powers that we get to use. So before I pray, I do want to just acknowledge that, hey, family is hard, it can be messy, and sometimes we can really be hurting. So if this has struck a chord with anyone, I just want to encourage you, your Power Life leaders are here, and they want to talk about it. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, anyone on staff, Robert, myself, we are all here to pray with you, and to pray about your family. So I just want to start with that, and then will you guys pray? I've learned I gotta wait a minute. So we're gonna give you 3 seconds to be ready to pray. All right, I heard there was some claps. I like it. All right, would you pray with me? Oh, Jesus, we just thank you. Thank you for coming and for preparing our brokenness. We ask you to just work in our families' lives. We ask you to help us be the light in our families. We thank you for the powers that you give us to do this through your spirit and your word. May our homes be filled with hope and unity and your light. Amen.